I'd be remiss if I didn't focus on because I read on I believe I read because we're talking about the 14-year-old version of you that you kind of bonded with some of your early bandmates with if you see the posters in my background. I read an article, it's my Guns N' Roses themed Appetite for Distortion. You may have guessed that. Were you into Guns N' Roses back in the day as a high school kid? Was that kind of
Oh yeah.
that it helped shape your musical tastes?
Yeah, I think the song that hit me like hard was November Rain. That was like a little later in their career, but and also like Don't Cry and what those two, the double album,
Use Your
whatever.
Illusion 1 and 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, those were like I think that was about the time when I got my first like a CD player. So
Hmm.
those were the albums I got first. I thought, oh, it's just really fascinated, and then that era with bands like Skid Row too, and those um, had a big influence on my songwriting and like even singing.
Yeah, right
So
on.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
hey,
actually played together on a Helsinki Ice Hall, and I went there to see them. My sister, she's 3 years older than me, and she was always introducing me all these bands, and she took me to this concert, and I think I was like 12 years old, and I was like, wow, you know, we had good seats and a little bit higher, so I could see the stage and everything. There were no LED screens and like
sure.
stuff like that back then,
No, of
so
course
that
not.
was just like, but I was like blown away by the vibe in the audience, like 6,000 people like singing together, and that really changed my life.
Was he late that day? I'm just curious. As a 12-year-old, did you have to wait for Axel that long? Like, did your sister have to
No,
prepare you? No, you came out on
no,
time.
it was that was some time that must have been the only show.
Oh, hey, I'm envious because I'm I guess a little younger than you. Even though November Rain is my favorite song, that's what really how I found my love of the band because just of my age. But I wish I was able to see that tour, the Use Your Illusion tour, to be of that informative age and to have that, is very very cool. You never got a chance because I always try to find the 6 degrees of what I call 6 degrees of GNR Bacon, like the 6 degrees of separation. You ever get to meet any of the band members? Because I know people play festivals. I don't know if you ever cross paths. Just curious.
Yeah, I've met Alice Cooper. I mentioned him. Like he was like the
But of the
first.
GNR guys, I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, Jenna. No, no,
Okay.
no. I have not met them.
Okay. All right.
But
Well, you never know. Again, so that'll be a nice little segue to because they're on tour, you're on tour, but actually before because they're overseas now. Well, for me, overseas right now. Before you go back to Finland and Denmark and Germany and all over the UK. And what's awesome about this podcast, I got listeners in all these countries. You come to the U.S. Well, you come to Canada and the U.S. You're playing. I actually lived in Massachusetts for a couple years, but in Cape Cod, you're playing Boston. You're playing New Hampshire. You're playing. I saw the Blind Melon at La Poisson Rouge. I probably missed in Brooklyn. So, how often do you get to play America? Do you enjoy? Like, do you have like favorite states that you enjoy playing? Not to play favorites, but do you enjoy playing certain parts of the country?
yeah, we haven't played here much at all, which is
Yeah.
sad because I've even lived in the U.S. for the last 11 years, and we haven't played during that time. Not even once we didn't play. So it's like that's crazy.
Wow.
But I think last time we had a tour, it was 16 years ago. So now we're actually right now in Canada, in Toronto, and
Okay.
we had played in the US like the last 3 weeks, and it's been just fantastic to meet the fans. You know, like people who came to see us back then, and they're like, or people who had never saw us before. They're like, "Oh my God, we've been waiting for 25 years," and like we hear their stories, and like it's really really like oh, feels so good, like to finally get to meet these people in person. And we played quite small clubs this time, like because we haven't built a following here that much yet. So it's been really awesome shows. Like like today, I think it's like 500 people, and it's like, oh, the room is tiny and sweaty, and like those are like insane shows compared to what we do somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
What's the largest crowd you've, as opposed to 500? What's the largest crowd you've ever played
well,
for?
on this tour, it's the largest is 11,000 in
But
Mexico.
in general, like your career, I'm just
Oh,
trying to picture that.
yeah. Well, we once played in Russia. It was like a festival thing, and they say it was like 280,000 people. That was pretty sick. Like,
Uh,
it's like never ending sea of like people. But I just saw a picture of Lady Gaga performing for 2 million or something. So I was like, okay,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's breaking that record. Yeah.
No,
But still, that shows you have to put on, I mean, well, you tell me whether you're playing for close, over 200,000 versus 500. Are you the same frontman? Are you, what's, are you the same kind of person? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it's like.
honestly, I think I get better the less people there is. Like somehow because I'm like, oh, I really understand that I'm responsible of like entertaining these people because
Mm,
the fewer there is, like it's for me it's more personal because it's almost like I can touch them and they are right there, like I'm spitting on their faces when I'm singing. I have to watch that, but like it's just so like intimate. So and like I said, like we haven't been here in 16 years. It's just the feeling is like a homecoming or something, like so positive and so emotional. Plus, a lot of those people were teenagers back then when they discovered our music. And what happens when you're a teenager and you listen to music and find your favorite music, it really goes deep in your soul, and it will stay there forever. And so those have been like incredible moments. But also, I mean, I just met people yesterday who had just heard about us, like, last week. So, you know, it seems like we are making a lot of new fans with this new material and a little bit like in a heavier corner compared to what we've done in the past. And, that also kind of opens some new doors and opportunities for us. And it's
that
interesting.
that's kind of the best of both worlds. That's kind of it echoes what I noticed about the comments on the Break These Chains video about there's like kind of like almost a resurgence of early 2000s rock, and that was kind of my wheelhouse. I mean, I wasn't overly young then, but that was how old was I? I guess college. But I still throughout this time because the lasting impact, I'm hearing the beginning of In the Shadows. Just like every time I guess see
Mhm.
Rasmus, I'll never forget it. Watching the video for the first time on Fuse,
Yeah.
when just learning about this band from Finland. So I'll never forget that. I mean, that's something that stuck with me. That's probably not going to happen now. I'll see a band and they go in and out. But no, that was everlasting time, which is why it's been an honor to speak with you today about it. So it just, if I may ask, like why so long? I mean, was it a demand, or was it not lack of? I guess I don't want to fill in your blank. Why so long for a U.S. date?
No, I mean, it's just, we didn't have a label in the US to release the music, and now we've just signed a deal with a Better Noise Music to, you know, it's an awesome company based in New York, and it kind of all makes sense now, and we have all the pieces together. We have, a US agent, and like, it's just more difficult when you don't have that because you kind of need
Sure.
the whole support thing. Like, um, even now, like playing this small tour, you know, we gotta pay to play. That's the reality, you know. Even though we are very successful elsewhere, we're here kind of starting over, which I also freaking love because it's like, you know, every fan I meet, every person I get to play to, I have to convince them, and we are going somewhere. We are, you know, approaching something, and we are conquering something, and that is kind of something I've missed.